Over the years, Celeste players have found many incredible speedrun skips. While some are more well known, such as the 3A demo dash, Farewell's dash trigger skip, and Bub's drop, there are many other weird skips that don't get a place in the spotlight. So today, we're going to fix that by taking a look at some of Celeste's weirdest skips. The first skip we will cover is a skip in 2C that we all dreamed of. In the final room of 2C, you're supposed to collect all of the key coins which are scattered throughout the room, making the route quite tedious. Once you get the final coin, the block at the end of the room moves up, allowing you to get the top dream block. It would be very nice to be able to ignore the coins, but without the coin block moving up, how would it be possible to make it to the top dream block and still have a dash? Here's what you need to do. By jumping out of the last dream block and then turning around, you can barely grab the wall underneath it. From there, you updash through the dream block and then you just need to scale the wall to make it to the top dream block while still keeping your dash. This skip saves a decent amount of time, but most importantly, it skips the hassle of getting all of these coins. In fact, it turns out that Celeste players really don't like getting coins, as we'll see from the next skip. While we're on the topic of coin skips, let's take a look at this room near the end of 4B. It has all of these coins that you need to go up and down and up and down and up and down just to get all of them. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just skip all of that? Well, guess what? You actually can. Here's how it works. When you get to the last bubble, you want to take it upright instead of right. This allows you to corner kick at the bottom of the wall just below the spinners, giving you enough height to re-enter the bubble after it respawns. This lets you do the same corner kick again, but this time the wind gets you much more distance. Next up, you jump from the coin block to the right wall, barely staying above the death barrier. And finally, you scale the wall and uplift dash to the outer wall, and climb to safety. This skip is great because in addition to saving time, it turns this normally boring room into a fun little shortcut. While skipping coins is one thing, the next skip uses a tutorial room just to gain enough speed for a room skip. Normally, after entering the mirror temple, we take this red bubble across a large pit. But what if we didn't want to use the bubble? If we try doing an extended hyper to skip the bubble, we will quickly find out that it's no use since the bubble's placement forces us to go low and so we don't get enough distance. This leaves us with one option, going back? But there's nothing there. There's only a random assortment of swap blocks which act as a tutorial. Except, this is exactly what we need. By going to the highest swap block and jumping off of it as it is moving forward, we gain a tiny bit of extra speed. Pairing this with a downright dash, we can ultra in the next room, and thanks to the extra speed, we make it to the other side without using the bubble. As it stands, this skip is mostly just a weird flex. However, in tool-assisted speedruns, you can generate incredible speeds off of the swap block and actually save time with this. While this skip seems reasonable, the next skip is one that the game clearly wasn't prepared for. At the end of chapter 6, you usually join forces with Badeline to make it all the way up the last room and beat the level. But doing this is clearly required since there are spinners which stop you from making it very far on your own. Well, what if I told you that you can actually skip Badeline here? Here's how. First, you scale the right wall all the way up to this block. From here, you jump to the left and then do a wall bounce off of the bottom of this wall, which is possible because the bottom spinner doesn't fully cover the wall and thanks to Celeste's wall bounce leniency. Next, you crouch dash to the right and you can barely fit under the spinner to get a reverse hyper dash and make it to the left wall with 2 dashes. Finally, you climb up, jump to the right and use 2 up dashes to make it over the spinners. From here, it is trivial to make it up to the next room. Since the developers didn't intend for this skip, Badeline still says, "How did we do that?" in the final cutscene, despite the fact that she made it up on her own. While this skip is weird, it's actually fairly lenient. The next skip, on the other hand, requires an absurd level of precision. Take a look at this skip in the summit. Okay, huh? How did Badeline just clip through those dust bunnies? The gap between them isn't large enough for her to fall through. This shouldn't be possible. Okay, let me explain. In this room, a tiny part of the bottom room transition sticks above the wider section of the dust bunny's hitbox. By using a wall bounce to position ourselves, we can perfectly squeeze through the top part of the 2 dust bunnies. Then, before we die to the wider hitbox, we enter the bottom room. Next, because entering a downward transition moves Badeline down slightly, we manage to clear the dust bunnies in the bottom room. Doing this puts us in the next room faster, saving around 1.5 seconds. Yup, you heard me right, all of that just to save 1.5 seconds. This just shows you that speedrunners will do anything just to save time. Now, if you thought this skip was precise, wait until you see the next skip, which requires positioning within a fraction of a pixel. Normally, to get this key in the depths checkpoint in chapter 5, you're supposed to make it through 3 rooms in order to enter the key room from the top and fall down to collect the key. But that is very slow. Luckily, even though the developers tried their hardest to stop players from getting the key from the bottom, it is still just barely reachable. Here's the setup. First, we need to manipulate our vertical subpixels. In case you didn't know, Celeste tracks your position with higher precision than full pixels. In this case, we use a setup to ensure that we are in the top 1/100th of a pixel. Next, we line up Badeline's toe with this crack in the ground. From here, we hold down and right, then do a crouch dash and a 1-frame jump to get a low hyper. Then, we use a visual cue in the background to time a jump. Once we pass the corner, we do a reverse corner boost off of the wall, and once we're at the peak of the jump, we finally dash up and get the key. With all that done, we have successfully skipped 3 rooms and grabbed ourselves around 4 to 6 seconds of time save. But weird Celeste skips aren't always about precision. Sometimes, the weirdness comes from the route itself. Usually, in the first room of the 2500 meter checkpoint in the summit, you take these red bubbles all the way across to the next room. Alternatively, there's a secret route that you can take by going backwards at the start and taking a red bubble from a hidden room. This bubble takes you across the top of the starting room towards the gem. The problem is that this route is way too slow since you need to go backwards to start it. But what if we could combine both routes? Well, it turns out that the top route is accessible directly from the main room without needing to go backwards. We can take advantage of this by going up to the top route manually, using grounded ultras across the platforms to maintain high speed, and then converging with the regular route using one final ultra. Optimally, this ends up being slightly faster than taking the middle bubble in the bottom route. One thing to note about this skip is that it is really difficult to save time with, and so it is mainly used in tool-assisted speedruns. Even so, this is still a surprisingly unintuitive skip that's easy to overlook at first glance. While this skip is weird, the next one abuses one of Celeste's notoriously hated mechanics. Normally, to beat this screen at the end of the Golden Ridge, you use your dashes, the bubbles, and the wind to make it across the room. This room is literally as straightforward as it gets. How could you possibly skip anything here? Here's the plan. We're going to take the first bubble upright instead of right, so that we can dash upright and then jump on the spikes to make it up to this floating platform. Then, we can hyper dash off of it, making it across much faster. Wait, what did I just say? Jump off of the spikes? I knew that you could jump off of spikes if you're moving away from them, but we are moving towards these spikes. How is this possible? What's happening is that the wind pushes Badeline into the spikes hitbox after collision checks are made. Then, if we quickly jump off of the wall, we can escape the hitbox before collision is checked again, effectively letting us jump off of the spike. Because this skip is hard to perform quickly and consistently, it is also mainly relegated to tool-assisted runs. But this doesn't change how odd and glorious it is. But compared to the final skip, jumping on spikes almost looks normal. Normally, once you reach the end of the last gameplay room of Chapter 8, you grab the cassette, which triggers a sequence that takes you across a massive gap to enter the heart room. In theory, grabbing the cassette is quite slow, since it has a cutscene attributed to it, and then you also have to wait until you get bubbled across the gap. But how could you possibly cross this massive gap on your own? So, for starters, if you keep 2 dashes up to the cassette, you can actually hyper dash and just barely make it across the gap using your second dash. However, this still wasn't enough for speedrunners, so they found this. Let's tackle the skip step by step. First, you go to the right side of the core block in order to activate it. Then, you demo dash to the left in order to get a reverse hyper. After that, you immediately corner boost into an upright dash and a second corner boost. Finally, you just need to jump off of the ice ball, jump on the cassette platform, and you're home free. This skip rewards you with around 3 to 5 seconds of time save, which is painfully low for a skip this complex. And that's it. That's the last skip for today. It's amazing how many weird things players have managed to find in Celeste. This game is truly a goldmine of weird tech and skips. I really hope you enjoyed this video and found it interesting. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps out a lot. Let me know in the comments how many of these skips you already knew and which was your favorite. If you want to hang out and see more from me outside of these videos, you can join the Discord, link in the description. I also want to give a shout out to the official Celeste Discord for helping me out with some of the information in this video. If you're into obscure Celeste mechanics and skips, then check out the video on the right where I pushed an obscure Celeste mechanic to its limits. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Bye!